Okay, so Pōmarie everybody. Lovely to have such a big public forum this evening. So welcome and welcome community board members to our August community board meeting. So we get started with a karakia timatanga and I would like to invite our recently appointed Māori ward councillor Dale Marie Morgan to open for us tonight. Thanks, Dale Marie.
Tēnā tātou I te whare. I'll just wait for my mate Lou to take a seat. Ko rangi ko papa. Ka puta ko rongo, ko tāne mahuta, ko tangaroa, ko tūmataunga, ko haumi e tiki tike. Ko tā whirimātia, tokona rā te rangi ki runga, ko papa tuanaku ki raro, ka puta ki te ira tangata, ki te whaiao, ki te ao mārama, Ti hei mauri ora, he mihi nui kia koutou, I tēnei wā, I huihui o tēnei whare, he mihi ka tika ki tō mātou mana whenua I konei I roto I te whare. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora, Dale Marie, much appreciated. Okay, so we'll get underway with item 1 on our agenda, which of course is our apologies, and we do have an apology from community board member Kane Titchener, and otherwise I think if I've counted right, everyone else is here. There's only one spare seat, so if we can have, I'll move that apology. Can I have someone to second it? Thanks, John. All in favour? Against? Carried. Tonight, in regard to a disclosure of members' interests, do we have anyone that has any conflict of anything on the agenda from the board? No, I do. So for item, just double check what number it is. Item 8, I will be leaving the room and the community board will appoint a new chairperson to chair that part of the meeting. Okay, so we will move to the public forum. I've been advised that there's 2 people to speak tonight, and I've got Peter Fletcher on my list first. So Peter, if you would like to, there he is, find you, pop up the top there. Yep. That way, by keeping this open, everybody can see and don't have to look at the backs of chairs, which I thought was a little bit nicer. I do just want to remind people that information that's been shared about the War Memorial Park, it needs to be new information. We don't want to be continually going over the same information at this point, okay? So that would be much appreciated. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks very much. The World War II dedicated Memorial Park. 2 items. First one, I'm speaking on behalf of the next of kin descendants, the #1 stakeholders, plus on behalf of many people known as the public. In front of you is a couple of maps showing almost the full extent of the park. And you can see the title we have chosen for it. Noting that many council maps, telephone book maps, official maps and even dog park maps all have it wrong. That is, still have the Mangaho stream in its pre-1960 course. So the top map will be our base map. That is, to bring the map or maps up to 2023 standards and wipe out the inexcusable confusion and mistakes this council is guilty of. Second item, the debt we all owe to all the people who made this park possible can only be upheld by ensuring all the speeches on opening day, 4th of December, 1955, are upheld, and it's everyone's duty to do so. This was achieved by the planting of all trees, sunken gardens, roses, more memorial features, etc., and making the park a familiar place, achieving the goal of a place of peace and tranquility designed to ease the grief of the next of kin and anyone else with grief problems or any other life problems. assisted by stone seats for contemplation. Example, removing all non-native trees will destroy one of the reasons the park came into existence. Plus, non-native trees feed birds such as tuis, wood pigeons, which goes a long way in making it a familiar place of peace and for people to feel they are at home in familiar surroundings. Beside the sunken cross, which was an afterthought, like all parks, a lake, all lakes are always the central feature of a park. Destroying a lake is one way of destroying a park. As you can see from the two photos, the lake has already been reduced in size, so there's no need to reduce it further. Hearing, seeing, falling water in the form of fountains, waterfalls, waterways, and hopefully sometime in the future, a water wheel is a giant factor in bringing about the peace and tranquility we all aim for in our lives. It is more than just a dedicated memorial boating lake. It's the key to the whole park. This council only has permission to maintain it, the park. That's it, just maintain. It's all that's required of the council in conjunction with the Internal Affairs Council Subsidy Agreement, which began with the Prime Minister's signature on the first document in 1949, and later the Council Dawson Bequest Agreement. This council has failed to uphold both agreements. Instead, this council has decided to stress people to the point of them crying with tears cascading down their face, publicly planning to show contempt and derision to all the people who suffered 6 long years of war.
Excuse me, Peter, we're not here to have a bag of council, and we have covered this before, okay?
Well, we need to keep
So,
covering it
with
until something is
respect-
done.
With respect, we need to be respectful, and I have asked you, and I told you on the phone the other day, it's about new information, the realignment, and showing that's good, but we're starting to track into old stuff that is being rehashed over and over. We've heard, as a community board, we are supporting you to our best ability. So please, if the rest of what you've got to say is simply putting the boot into the council, then we have already heard many of those comments. So if you've got anything new to add, we'd love to hear that, but anything that's repeating yourself, please, can we refrain? Thank you.
Well, the reason why things have kept being repeated is because after 3 years, nothing has changed. And remember, it is solely a war memorial, not a memorial.
And we know that, and there's going to be some things happen. So unfortunately, these things take time, and you do need to be patient. Sorry that Rome wasn't built in a day, but we're doing our best. But unfortunately, when we just keep rehashing the same things, then we don't always get a favourable response. So we need to start being positive and finding a way forward.
Well, you seem to forget you've deliberately upset many, many people. Unbelievable.
Yes, and we acknowledge and recognise that, Peter. So,
well, what are you going to do about it?
Right now, we've heard you, and there's nothing that we can do right at this minute. So thank you for raising your concerns again. Like I say, you just need to be patient because there's nothing we can change right now. Has anyone got any questions for Peter in regard to what he's just said? No? Okay, so I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for the extra information about the realignment. But that's where we're sitting at the minute, okay? So we have done this.
Well, I did ask for the council to produce the new maps and so on. And this is the reason why we've undertaken it, because the council has not produced new accurate maps
Yeah, and as I say, these things don't happen overnight. It takes time to get the web designers and that information updated. So it doesn't always happen, but this is great and it shows it nice and clearly, and we will certainly pass this on. I know we raised it at the May meeting that the stream alignment wasn't in place. So my understanding is that was being looked into, but we need to give them a bit of a chance to be able to produce new maps, and there might still be the odd one in the archives that comes up when you do a Google search that still will be wrong. They can't necessarily get every single thing off the internet. So I'm sure they are doing their best on those maps, but that's clarified it. So thank you.
Good.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, so Angus, are you floating around this? Thank you. So if you want to jump up the top, because then you've got the microphone.
Some minutes here of meeting we had
Oh, yes, thank you.
with on the 21st of September with the 4 potential mayors.
Yep. Can I get you to jump up on there, because what Kieran's recording the meeting, and so unless you speak near the microphone, it means that they can't hear you very well. So you'll notice there's a wee button that says push, and
How's that?
perfect, beautiful. Thanks, Angus.
Unfortunately, a little bit of my stuff here is the same as Peter's, and I apologise for that. But I just looked up to see in the Collins English Dictionary, for a start, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And that's fantastic. It's democracy working and so on. I looked up to see what memorial meant in the Collins English Dictionary, and it's a thing which serves to keep in memory. And we've been over and over, I know, about World War II and so on, and so I'll leave that bit out. And the memorial is all the land. Peter's gone over that too. But in 1954, the Waipa Council accepted the park as such, and the community had done some money saving and putting money on one side, and had some grants, and that land was handed over to the council for maintenance in perpetuity. And I think that's important that is remembered. Our group that's talking to you guys about the park there, we don't want a lot of money spent on that area. We think that the original 10-year plan of spending $9 million on it was ridiculous, and we think that it just wants maintaining. It's a great place there. It's actually a different park to the other parks because a memorial, and the other parks are recreational parks, so it needs to be treated a little wee bit differently, and possibly that's already gone to council. I'm not aware of that, but I've handed out some minutes of a maintenance committee meeting had on the 21st of September when the 4 potential mayors had their talk, and there was a lot of talk about the pond, and virtually everybody there wanted the pond retained, and that's, I just passed that over. So in summary, the park's a memorial. Don't spend a lot of money on it. It's a different park, and respect those that went before and gave their lives and stood up to what was going on there in the Second World War. And the last 3 words would be, least we forget. It's important. Thank you very much for letting me speak. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Angus. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so was there anyone else that actually wanted to speak tonight that hadn't previously? Different, new?
No, I can't throw them together.
Oh, no.
It only arrived just after 5 o'clock, so.
My chat was ended on and it just got
Do you,
limited.
well, do you want to wait and do it at the next one, so then you've got your images? Probably would be better for you, because then we can put your images up rather than trying to do a half pie. Yep, that would, okay, great. Okay, thanks, Mark. Okay, so if we have finished the public forum, thank you, everyone. I would just like to take the opportunity to thank you. You're very welcome to stay and listen to the rest of our community board meeting. You won't be able to be involved from here on. And if any of the staff members are leaving, can you just please appreciate that they're on their way home? They've had a big day. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask them, please catch up with me at the conclusion of the meeting or send me an email and I will be happy to pass those questions on. So really appreciate your support there. Thank you. I can read out the agenda. So tonight's agenda we have coming up next will be the confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. We have a water services update, the adoption of standing orders, the community board code of conduct. We have a notice of motion in regard to the waste minimisation plant. We have the chairperson's report, a treasury report, board members' reports from meetings attended on behalf of the community board, an amendment to the schedule of meetings, the date of our next meeting, and following the conclusion of the community board meeting, we will be having a workshop on the local alcohol policy review. That people are welcome to stay. Yep, it's an open workshop, so you are welcome to stay if you wish. So that's what we're up to. Okay, so let's keep going so that we can get through this. So page 7, sorry, item 4 is the confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. So I just want to check that. I just thought I'd popped a note on one of these about something. Might not have been this one. Sorry, I just wanted to have a double check because I put a note somewhere. No. Okay, so can I, I'll move that the Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board confirms the minutes of the meeting held 28th of June 2023 as circulated with the agenda as a true and correct record of proceedings. Can I have someone second that? Bruce, thank you. All in favour? Against? Oh, Carrie,
Can
sorry.
I just put in those minutes that I attended via Zoom rather than actually attended the meeting,
Oh, yes.
please? Thank you. Bit
Sorry, I
slow-
forgot to look up.
Slow on the offtake.
No, that was my fault, Sally. I didn't look up, sorry. Helps when you do. Okay, so otherwise we're okay with that. Okay. If that's the only thing for the minutes, that's all good. I wouldn't need to move. Water services update. I think I saw Martin hiding over on the left-hand side. Welcome, Martin. Lovely to have you here in person. We will take your report as read, but if you've got anything in addition that you would like to highlight, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
There's not a report as such. It's just
Sorry,
a
update, I meant to say.
Yep,
Sorry.
it's
call
just
it the
a-
wrong thing.
presentation to talk to. So evening chair and community board members. I've got the. So this is just a quick update on some water projects that are happening in the district in Awamutu and Kihikihi this year, and a quick update on clams. So that's a picture of the clams, the golden clams that are causing so much trouble. I assume you all get the updates on a Friday, so you've read all about them. So we first found them at Parallel Road Water Treatment Plant in a screen back in January, before they were famous, and we didn't know that they shouldn't be here. But once they become public, we then advised MPI that we had found them earlier. So they don't cause too much of a problem for water treatment, but we're keeping a watching brief on that. Water projects for 23-24. So we've got water pipe asset renewals and upgrades. So in Kihikihi, we've got doing water main renewals in Grey Street, Whitaker Street, Oliver Street, Bryce Street and Short Street. And in Awamutu, we've got water main renewals in Hazelmere Crescent, Carlton Road and Mandeo Street. And the next page has got the map of those. On the left is the Kihikihi one, on the right is Awamutu. So you'll see we're in quite a constrained area, so we'll be busy with lots of works going on those roads when we start. And so be forewarned if you live there. And the next update is a fire flow and level of service upgrade. So we need to update quite a lot of pipes to make sure we can still meet our levels of service and our fire flows. So that's upgrading a pipe down State Highway 3 between Racecourse Road and Cambridge Road roundabout. Upgrade the existing pipeline from State Highway 3 and Cambridge Road roundabout to Fraser Avenue. And then from there on to Mondale Street and Hazelwood Crescent. And then also a pipe between Taylor Hill Reservoir and 952 Racecourse Road. That goes across country, that one. And then the Mangahoy Bridge to Sloane Street, Redoubt Street, Palmer Street, a new water main, and Scout Lane, Awamutu Street, State High 3 to Park Road and Hazelwood Crescent. So again, it's a lot in the same area. We're all doing upgrades, not for renewals, but because we need to put bigger pipes in. And that's the map of those works. So yeah, we're certainly going to be busy on the streets doing water mains. And then we've also then got a Cambridge Road wastewater realignment. So we're going to put a new pump station at the Pukarau Reserve. And then a pipe from there goes across the park onto Cambridge Road. And then a pipe along Cambridge Road and then goes into the future T11 growth cell and then pops out the other side of the growth cell along Park Road and across to the Albert Park pumping station. And that's a map of those works. So the bit missing is the bit through T11 because the developer will do the required pipes in that area. So again, busy work on busy streets. So we apologise beforehand. And happy to ask any questions or answer any.
I just got one. Just wondering, how much notice do you give the residents before you do the works in the different streets?
Generally, it'll be a month before we start. And then once we're there, there'll be notifications if we need to turn the water off. On any particular days, they'll be notified before we need to shut it off. But yeah, generally, once we're in that area, they'll see us everywhere. So probably a month's notice, and then
Great,
it's
thank
all-
you. Thank you.
John.
When do you envisage starting, please?
Hopefully late November, December, depends. We've got to let a contract yet and get that successful. If not, it'll be, and then we won't do any work over the Christmas period and then start again in the new year.
Just adding on to John's, where are you planning to start?
Not, that'll be up to the contractor. Once we've
Okay.
engaged a contractor, they'll come up with a program that suits them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just quite good to be able to, if people start seeing things,
Yes.
give them the heads up a bit. No,
Yeah.
thanks. Bruce.
Martin, that's an upgrade. So do these pipes that you pull out to put new ones in, have they got any usefulness after that?
No, most of them are old AC mains, which is asbestos cement. So the best left.
Okay. Anything else from anyone for Martin? No, awesome. Thank
Cool,
you.
easy,
Thank
thanks
you.
so much.
That's great to have that update actually and know that that's coming up. Things like that are really helpful, I think, because, we do tend to get asked from time to time and it's nice having that kind of information. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Right, so where are we up to? Water services. Oh, it's Joe's turn. So item 6 on page. Oh, sorry, yes. Gosh, that was a big slip. So we'll receive that. The Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board receives a presentation of Martin Mould, Manager of Water Services. Can I have someone to move that? John and second Jill, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Karen. On to the next one. Got a bit excited. Okay, so we have Joe Greig, the Manager of Governance, here to talk to us about item 6 on page 26 and item 7, which is the Community Board Code of Conduct on page 164. So Joe, is it easier that you speak to us about it and then we move all our motions? Probably would be, wouldn't it, just in case there's anything that we
Yes, I
want to
think so.
ask in this case?
I think so. So the purpose of this report, good evening, is to present an updated version of standing orders to adopt the triennium. These we looked at the LGNZ produces new templates each triennium, which we've had a look at, and we've incorporated a lot of those comments. There wasn't a lot of changes. The most significant ones was the, I think that you'll see throughout, was the te reo headings that they made available this time, which was excellent. Otherwise, they are relatively minor changes. There is, if you look at page 160 of your agenda, that kind of goes through all of the template changes that LGNZ produced, to just give you a high level summary in that table that's there on your agenda. Some way through, obviously, at 160. Quite a lot of documents there. Did anyone have any questions on any of the standing orders? It's not a lot of change that we're proposing.
So I just had one on page 33 about it's not mandatory that they be adopted every triennium.
No, it's not.
So,
no.
so what's the gear? If there's new things come out, is that when you've got to actually update them?
No,
or
you
whatever?
can just, because you've got to have them. So, and you can only pass them by a vote of 75%. So if you don't agree to adopt them all, they just, the old version just stands. You know, it might be that, you know, some councils might look at it and think there's not significant enough changes in the new template to make changes, but it's really up to each council to decide if they want to do new standing orders each triennium. We come and present them as a general practice each triennium and see what you think, and if you'd like to adopt them, of course you can retain the current ones if you want, rather than adopting the new ones.
Has anyone else got any questions for Joe or any discussion around our standing orders? No? All right. Well, let's make this happen then, eh? I couldn't think of anything, so. So we are going to move that the Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board receives the report of Joe Greed, Manager of Governance, titled Adoption of Standing Orders. B, adopts the set of standing orders attached in Appendix 1 of this report to replace Council's current standing orders, noting in doing so that 1, the casting vote is available for use by the chairperson. 2, audio link or audio visual link are available options if the appropriate quality conditions can be met. And 3, the default position for the speaking and moving motions is option C. And then part C is in accordance with Standing Order 13.3, delegates authority to the chairperson to grant a leave of absence to a community board member. So can I have someone to move that? Jill, second. Bruce, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, Joe. If you would like to move on to item 7, the Community Board Code of Conduct, and members, it's on page 164 of your agenda.
So again, this is something that's not compulsory each triennium. In terms of the approach with this one, the thinking was that actually the current code of conduct that we have seems to have been working quite well, so we didn't see need for significant change in that space. But what did come out with some of the new material that was produced was a detailed behaviour section, which replaces what used to sit there is the, if you'll find it, it's behaviours at 4 and the code is the new section, and that replaces the relationship section, which had a very similar theme to it, but it's a lot more descriptive in the behaviour section. So it was, the thinking was that more detail would be helpful. There is also, in terms of, we've adopted the approach of a separate policy on investigating breaches, and that is a new document. So the thinking there is, you know, there's obviously, if you get into the situation where you have a complaint, that, you know, it's useful to have that element of independence. So that was kind of even more strengthened in the proposal from what we had currently. So we thought that was another useful tool that came out this training to use. So there was kind of two aspects that we picked up with the code this time.
So again, has anyone got any questions in regard to the code of conduct? Just even anything that you want clarified while you've got the opportunity to ask Joe, or anything around, more particularly around those changes? No? Okay, let's move that. We received the report of Joe Greed, Manager, Governance Title, Community Board Code of Conduct. B, adopt the Community Board Code of Conduct 2023, Appendix 1 of the report, and revoke the existing Code of Conduct, Appendix 2 of the report, with immediate effect. And C, adopt the Community Board Policy for investigating and ruling on alleged breaches of the Code of Conduct and the processes for determining and investigating complaints. Can I have someone to move that, please? John, seconder, Jill. Not fast enough, Sally. All in favour? Against? Carried. Lovely. Thank you, Joe.
Can I just say, make comment that even though it was quite a lot of reading to do, I can see how thorough Joe has had to go through it all to make sure it's all there. So thank you, Joe.
Yeah. Must be a fun job, that one. I know. So next item on our agenda is item 8, for which I need to vacate the chair. So I am going to leave the room and hand it over to the community board.
So under standing order 14.1, if a chairperson is absent, or in this case vacates the chair, the deputy chair must act as chairperson. However, as is the case today, if the deputy chair is also absent, the community board members who are present must elect a member to be the chairperson of the meeting. The person may exercise the meeting responsibilities, duties and powers of the chairperson for that meeting. So I have a prepared motion here that the Te Awamutu Community Board appoint a member, whoever it is, to be the chairperson for item 8, notice a motion of this meeting. So it's up to you guys now to nominate a person to chair.
Can I nominate Lou? Thank you.
I will second that.
So we have a motion. So we have a motion here to appoint Councillor Brown to be the chairperson for this. All those in favour? Against? Awesome.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I can see it behind me. Welcome, everybody. As I say, we have a notice of motion from a member, Whittaker, and that notice of motion is, yep, it has to be read out. So if you'd like to read that motion out, please, Sally.
So I would like to amend my motion at this point. Is that all right? Yep. So the motion that I'm going to propose is, if the proposal for the waste to energy plant on Racecourse Road continues and goes to public notification, the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board will make a submission. The submission will be prepared in consultation with all the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board members, with final approval of board member Whittaker.
Right, that's quite a significant change to the original motion. So as I say, I have to put it to the meeting that we accept that at the moment. We accept that motion as an adaptation of the original motion. So
Doesn't have to be accepted. Okay. I normally when you change a motion, we do that. But okay, in this case, I'm happy to talk about, as I say, I think that recognises all of our discussion the other day. I've had a discussion with you. Just for those that weren't aware, I think all of you were there on Monday night, except Bruce. And as I said, Bruce, I think that if we go ahead with your original motion, would have been felt that we had a preconceived opinion, and we should just leave it until we've received both sides of the conversation, so that then we can go into a submission process without being seen as preconceived. Okay. All right. Has anybody got any comment on the motion, for the motion? Would you like to develop any more, Sally, or are you happy with your original movement?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Anybody else want to
It's
speak to
just
it?
that it's time critical, and so therefore to avoid any time lapses and things, it's there that we will be making a submission.
Does anybody want to speak against the motion? Well, if no one speaking for or against the motion, have you got a copy of the amended motion to our secretary? You have got a copy of that. That's the main thing. So can I read, is this the one I've got to read out?
Sally just read it out. Sally just read it out.
Okay, you've just read it out. Is everyone fully aware of the motion? Can I have somebody, well, you've moved it, Sally?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Jill is seconding the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Is there any against? The motion is carried, ladies and gentlemen. You can now call our chair back into the meeting. That was very, very brief and prompt. I think that's a far more achievable thing, Sally, so that's well done. Yeah, you have exactly what I said. That's what I said to them. Yeah, we had formed an opinion before we had. That's exactly what I said. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. So thank you for having me back. Righto, I need my glasses. Right, so, oh, we're already up to my report. This is the speediest meeting we've had in a long time, isn't it? It's pretty swish. Right. So I will take my report as read. There are only a couple of things that I wanted to come back to. The piece about the War Memorial Park is really just a comment and to bring in the response to our motion from our May meeting to clarify that legal status. The playground at Riwi Maniapoto Reserve, I see, thank you very much, that council has responded with some responses to the questions that we asked there. So just for those people watching, we had noted that the new playground is very close to the road and also very close to the Riwi Maniapoto Memorial. So we were concerned, and members of the community have also expressed concern about how close it is to the road. And Space Dave across the road actually commented that he had seen a small child almost run around that little fence and onto the road, and the parent just got to them in time to stop them. So that is a little bit, not a little bit of a concern, quite a big concern actually. However, my questions were, why was the playground put so close to the road? Why were there only 2 apparatus provided? And what is the point of a strip of fencing that children can go around? And why was the existing location not utilised and a path provided to get to it? And our response to that is just here. So the reserve is on land owned by Maniapoto. Our representatives from Mana Whenua agreed to council refurbishing the swings and installing a new spinner and associated safety service. They also agreed to the placement of the equipment A karakia was held by representatives for the new space. It was deliberately moved out of the gully and closer to Whitmore Street to make it more accessible and visible. And this was after concerns were raised by parents and caregivers about play equipment being out of sight. The fence is not intended to contain children, but act as a barrier for a child who may run directly towards the road. And they have said that as all playgrounds, we anticipate children should be actively supervised. So council cannot control the behaviour of teenagers, because one of the things I raised was that there were teenagers sitting on things. So thank you to staff for answering those questions. I had put in here a recommendation. So I had been advised by Megan Copeland Megan Prescott, sorry, that they had had some issue with people driving around the new fruit trees. So I offered to her that I would include it in my report and that we could possibly make a recommendation to the Parks and Reserve team that there were some bollards put on Glen Eagles Drive, because that pathway is a lovely wide pathway. And as a community patroller, I myself have driven up there on occasions. So it is easily accessible in a vehicle. And that appears to be the way that these people are coming in. So you will note that staff has responded and said they weren't aware of it. However, because it's come directly from the person that's leading the fruit forest, I felt that it was important for us as a community board to show our support. So are there any comments in regard to that issue that I've raised there? Any discussion? No. So I'd like to move that we recommend to the Parks Reserve team that removable bollards are installed on the entrance of the walkway to the Pikaro Reserve. There's a correction there. Apparently it's still called the Pikaro Reserve, not Pikaro. I know the one that I've got on diligent. Is it meant to be to the Chief Executive? Did you change it? Yeah. Okay. I'll make a slight amendment to that. That we recommend to the Chief Executive that removable bollards are installed at the entrance. So if I move it, would anyone interested in seconding it? Jill, all in favour? Against? Carried. I suggested that, so they still had an access in there, but for me, that's up to them.
No, it's just a question that, you know, they'd have removable bollards because there is some pipelines and things down that way.
Oh, right.
You know, they do need to have access for those sort of things,
Yeah.
large machinery.
In the garden and stuff along there. Bruce, do you
There's
want
go.
Mine's just for correction, Madam Chair, just done this in the wording of your report. I think it's quite harsh. Requests, that committee board requests that staff, and there's a big difference further on the fruit one, it's recommends. So I think maybe it's asked. So I don't know how, is request too hard a word, harsh a word? When you sort of, it's in your fourth line down on your chair's report. It's got requests, so maybe ask staff. I don't know whether requests, it's like saying you do this.
The recommendation, the resolution is that it recommends to the Chief Executive that so, but obviously there was a.
I've got a request.
Oh, I read off my one too. I should have read off the run.
Well, it doesn't
sheet,
matter.
sorry.
It's just I thought staff had, you know, it's sort of just telling staff what to do really. Recommends, yes, that's what this body is, but not requesting them to do something.
Yeah, cool.
That'll be my.
Which page are you on?
Yeah, it should be. Oh, okay. But that was a previous one. That was a previous.
Yeah, yeah. So that was just copy and pasting one that we had made ages ago. Yep, now I'm looking at the right place. Thanks, Bruce. Okay, so do you want me to start again with that recommendation?
Well,
Or are we happy with that because we had people move it.
Just for clarity, so Ange moved and seconded by Jill that the community board recommends to the chief executive that the removable bollards are installed at the entrance of the walkway to Picardo Reserve from Glen Eagles Drive.
Great, thank you. Public toilets. So interestingly, with the public toilets, I'd had a few complaints. So I felt that, okay, we'll bring this to the community board and just raise the issue around service levels for cleaning and maintenance. And again, we've had a response from staff, sorry, I'm just going to jump back to this one because it's, they have a contractor who performs the public toilet cleaning, and apparently it has passed council staff audits recently. There had been some previous issues where levels weren't met, so that has been raised with the contractor, and there has been subsequently an improvement in the performance. And they were saying that there's been a few complaints, there have been few complaints received about the public toilets, but when received, they are dealt with swiftly. The toilets are only ever as clean as the last person who used them. Staff are currently working with elected members through the 2024-34 long-term plan to determine the appropriate level of service for public toilet maintenance. The public toilets located on Walton Street, which are the ones near the courthouse, will be replaced this financial year as part of the public renewal program. Now, I do know as of yesterday that the public toilet down by the eyesight has got a broken tap that someone I met with yesterday advised, and they also commented that they didn't think that the public toilets were of a good standard. So that was a second lot of people that made the same comment. So maybe the contractors fixed them up for a bit, but possibly slacked off again. I'm not too sure, but that was further feedback on the public toilets. You'll see that we're off to the ComSafe Community Day, so we're all looking forward to that. We've got some fun things planned, and the team are working on getting out and seeing all our Kihikihi residents on that Community Day. I just did want to make special mention of Jill and the youth work. Well done, Jill, on the awesome job you're doing with our 10 to 15-year-olds. I know they really appreciate it and have lots of fun, and it was awesome to see you in that article in the paper, just letting the community know what you're up to. So thanks very much. It's a great job you do there for them. And also to say thank you to Jill, Sally and Kane for presenting to council the fluoridation issue at the finance and corporate meeting. So it was really good to see that. So I think that's the main thing. I've just added into the chair report the things that we've still got outstanding, and I had a fairly busy little while where I attended a number of events which I've listed there. So unless anyone's got any questions in regard or further comments in regard to the report. Sally.
I may have meant to mentioned it earlier, but with regards to the fluoridation, we also approved in that the motion that you were to write to the chair of Region 2 of the CBEC stating the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi supports the development of a remit. Just wondering if you had followed up on that, Ange.
Kane was going to write that, so
okay. Yep. Very good.
I think he mentioned the other night that he was still to do it, so yeah, but he was on to it. Anything else, any other comments in regard to any of those topics that came up? But that was just feedback that I'd received from the community. For those watching, if you do want to know more about what was in the report and the responses, please feel free to have a look at that agenda, and it's all the information's in there. So I need to move my report, don't I? So can I move that the Te Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board A receives my report and B receives the staff responses to that report? Sally, first up. I mean, Jill, second, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so we move to item 10 on page 249, which is our Treasury report. So we currently have a balance of $50,280.80 in uncommitted funds. We will have the first round of this discretionary applications at the September meeting. So it might look like a lot of money, but it's about to get used up pretty smartly. Any comments, any questions? Hopefully Karen will know the answers. Or Joe. But otherwise, is everyone happy with the Treasury report?
Just the one thing I'd like to mention. It's going.
You're on.
I am going. Just with Project Battery, just remember that that is finite, and we possibly would, if you're going to just cut it, you'll have to do some promotion with that to say that we will be cutting or stopping it.
That is
So,
true.
yeah, I'm collecting twice a week now, so it's actually accelerating quite regularly.
How much have we got left? Oh, we're still on the upside. No.
More up to date is at 1,266.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Hmm. So. Has anyone got any ideas about just how it might, what could be a good idea to, or think about a good idea about the best way to approach that actually? We're halfway.
You're
so-
talking about the battery costs?
Yeah, so we've allocated $2,500 towards recycling the batteries. So at $1,200, we're getting pretty well just past halfway at this point.
From my understanding, talking to Sally Fraser, is there is a battery service happening in Cambridge, which is through the Mitre 10. And they take all the batteries, and she was looking at, from what I gather, marrying it up here, and the cost may be relieved from the community board.
Yeah,
Is that
so
a
that's still
proposal or
coming.
possibility?
Yep, but we don't know when that's going to happen, and there is that transition that we wanted to do with that, when and if it happens. But yes, I was aware of that. So we'll just put our thinking caps on and come up with, we're probably going to need to do a little bit of signage, but it's not a panic, but we probably need to get onto it so we can approve it to create some signage that says.
Mitre 10 is supplying their batteries directly back to urban miners. So they have been a bit surprised at the charges. So they're not doing it for free. We're doing it for free. There will be a charge.
What might be an idea is we previously talked about making a sign of, like how many batteries. I wonder if we have something that can sit alongside it that we can show how much of our funds that we've used up. So then we can, that just sits alongside it as well. So maybe, we'll get onto that. Okay, all good. Thank you, Lou.
Just one quick question. Just wondering, I just see on here the replacement flags and the high vis vest. Just wondering how that's going.
I've got some proofs to look at for you guys to look at soon.
So are they likely to be ready in time for our Kihikihi event? Okay, that would be good. Okay. All right, if there's nothing further, did I not need to accept the Treasury report? So Nader Milne still? I don't have my normal thingy. So can we please move that the Awamutu and Kihikihi Community Board receives a report of Nader Milne, financial accountant, titled Treasury Report for the period ended 31st of July 2023.
Move that way.
Lou to move, John to second. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, board members' reports from meetings attended. So anyone been out and about and been at anything of late? Lou, yep, start at the far end and just come work out.
Following up from what Bill Harris presented here was a community hub that's being developed in Kihikihi at the moment. That's proceeding quite well at the moment. A little bit limited on funds, but we've managed to obtain large screen TV, which is mounted up there. They've actually got, I think, another 5 doors mounted, and they're actually working on some of the work inside, aren't they, John? So John can develop that more than I, but I mean, all I did was supply the TV. John and Terry and the boys put that in, so that was good. So we've got a good team out there at the moment working. Currently, as I say, I attended the Awamutu Sports prize giving, which was a very big event and quite interesting. We attended the community cadets, and they're having a major struggle at the current point in time with their location. So that's something that will have to be addressed, and the lease that on that building. So all of that needs to be done. And that was virtually me at the moment, and of course e-waste, and we need those banners, and because I'd like to have our profile as a community board recognised at our e-waste collections, please.
Yes, we were wondering if we could use one of the old Awamutu banners just to have there, and it could stay with the urban miners stuff unless we needed it. And then it just means we need to remember to get it. Okay, so that's you, Lou? Yep, Sally?
I went to Epikura Matariki event at Kihikihi Domain, the service delivery meeting, and I have been visiting the retailers asking for support for the community ComSafe Day on the 23rd of September, and also e-waste.
Cool.
A great response from retailers. They have been so generous, and I have been sort of saying to them, you know, hopefully it's a win-win and get more people into the town and make it more vibrant. And it's been a really nice, positive exercise.
Lovely, great, thank you. Jill?
Okay, so as Ange mentioned before about the youth program that I'm running, which was 1 day a week, and now it's 2 days a week, it's going well. And just something from that, talking to the youth, which I've just got some photos to show around here, around the room, is in Te Awamutu, apart from the popcorn park in Te Awamutu and Kihi, there's not really many parks for teenagers, probably 10 to 11 years old, and that's it. Popcorn park is quite good. So I've got a couple of photos here of maybe next time there's some developments in a park, there's some things they could do for, which we've been talking about with the youth. But also one thing I'm really interested in doing, and we can talk about it further, is in Cambridge, they've got a Rotary gym park that the Rotary built on council land, which I'm just going to show you photos of it. And it is such a popular thing. It doesn't require very much maintenance at all. It's in other places around New Zealand, but in Cambridge, it would be the highlight of my teenage grandchildren going there. In fact, we have to go there just for the park to Cambridge because the parks here aren't quite suitable. So apart from, as I say, a few things to do at the popcorn park, which is great, none of the other parks are suitable for over probably 10 or 11-year-olds. So I've just got some pictures just to pass around while we're sitting here. But the youth program's going well, but that is just one thing they've talked to me about.
Nice, thanks, Jill. John, do you have anything?
I caught up with a local citizen. He lives on Mutu Street, and he's sort of concerned about the speed on Mutu Street. They seem to do, instead of being doing 50, he reckons they're doing 60. He would like
Probably
the
are.
speed limit to reduce to 40. And I think it just needs to go back and see what Brian can come up with in transport. The other thing he brought up was the disposal spot at Mobile. He said, sitting at the Red Kitchen, he looks across there and sees caravans dumping and things like that. I'm not sure, but I think that land belongs to John Ingham through Ingham Motors, but I've got his phone number. I've been away, so I haven't had the opportunity to give John a ring and just have an inquiry with John and just see what he feels if it's on his land. And the other question that keeps getting asked at me, especially people around Oak Ridge, is why isn't Swarbrick Drive open to Golf Road? Now, my comments is that, and I have asked one of the floodgate relatives, and the answer to that was, if you want to know, ring council, because either the consent for that road to be finished hasn't been given, and that's why that road is still fenced off. Because my understanding, if once the road is opened and there's not consent, the repairs and maintenance to the road go back to floodgates. So at present, they don't want to do any more maintenance if they have to or whatever. At present, the other scenario to a lot of that is the building in that subdivision is basically ground to a halt, like every other subdivision. And I think till more houses are started to be built there, and the land has been allocated to their sites and things, that bit of road's going to be sort of staying like that for a
decoration.
while. Stay like that for a while, because a lot of people are going down and using the playground. So that is good. So it's getting used. The playground's been well utilised. Yeah. Okay, that's all I've got. Otherwise, I've been away too often to sort of run around town.
Oh, great, thanks, John. Bruce, do you have anything from your side? Okay, thank you. I've had a few things on. So just recently I spoke at the Kihikihi Lions and really just gave them an outline of what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. They are very supportive of us conducting a review of the Te Awamutu War Memorial Park and have offered any help and assistance. I popped into the Māori Women's Welfare AGM and caught up with them, and things are ticking along nicely there. The Apakura Matariki event out at the Kihikihi Domain was a wonderful event, and great music, great kai. Actually we have Tiaki Ormsby, who was the organiser of that, in the room with us today, or one of the organisers. So thank you very much, kia ora Tiaki, for organising that wonderful event for the community. It was a really fun day, and I also want to add that I was very fortunate, along with Councillor Dale Marie, to attend Ngāti Apakura's opening waiata Apakura at the Te Awamutu Cinema, and there was some amazing footage from the Matariki event. It just looked wonderful. I mean, it nearly brought tears to my eyes, and it made me laugh, and it's really awesome, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the rest of those waiatas come out as they're released. It's really exciting and beautiful. So congratulations, kia ora, thank you. And then just yesterday, I was involved with meeting with the Te Awamutu Lions in regard to just looking at the possibility of housing the Climax engine down at the proposed community events space that we have requested council consider at the end of Market Street on Mahoe Street, the Holmes Garage community space. So that was quite a good meeting. They're quite keen, but we've got a few things to work through in the first instance. And just on from that, I presented to council last week in regard to the Holmes Garage project. So I'm pretty stoked that they are considering it, and we'll have a clearer idea in November after they've done some more consultation with the community and the Becca, isn't it, Joe, consultants. And so Shane and I are also hoping to get meet with Andrew from the projects team, and he's happy to work with us on that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get that progressed. I called in up at the boot sale and managed to speak to a few people there, and they on balance seem very positive about the idea of having a space where they can be undercover. So that was positive, that they're like, yes, definitely, we'd be keen to do that. So that's a good start. So there's a few other organisations that I'd like to speak to. So if anyone else has the opportunity or comes across the opportunity of groups and things that you think might like to use it, please consider that, you know, like Jill with your youth group, would it be something that could be something you guys could use? You know, put up your big Jenga. We might even be able to have a big giant sized chess set in there as well. Or, you know, there's lots of ideas. So the more ideas and the more diverse we can make that space, hopefully the more likely we'll get it across the line. So that would be really neat. So that's pretty much me, unless anyone had any other questions about the things that I went to, but otherwise they're pretty self-explanatory. So it covers off that. So we now move to item 12, which is the amendment to the schedule of meetings on page 146. I'll jump down there. And Kieran has made a recommendation to move our meeting. What we go with in December. No, I want to go back up here. Hang on.
No, so Madam
Hold
Chair,
on.
the meeting was scheduled for the 22nd of November.
Thank you.
Since the Celebrating Waipara event has been scheduled for that same date.
That's right.
Virtually the same time, to which a lot of you, if not all of you, will be attending, along with many other members of the community. So I have proposed that we just move it one day to a Thursday. And so instead of being the 22nd to the 23rd, the main reason why one day and not one whole week is that the December meeting is not in the third week as per normal. It's actually in the second week, so it still gives a bit of a gap between the two meetings. So instead of it's still 3 weeks between meetings.
I'm happy to move that motion.
Yep,
Madam
thanks,
Chair.
Lou. Jill, second. All in favour? Against for the 23rd, so it's on there, John. Yeah. So it's just a bit of an odd one, but it was just so that fits in. Great. Okay, done. Okay, and then our final part of the agenda for tonight is the date of the next meeting, which will be at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 27th of September 2023. So that closes our meeting at 10 minutes. No, my karakia. No, I was just suddenly thought that I did my karakia after I closed the meeting, but I need to do it before. So I would like to.
And
Do you want to do it again? Seeing you're still here? Cool. Okay. So yes, please. I'd like to invite Dale Marie back to close our meeting with a karakia whakamutanga. Kia ora.
E mihi ana kia koe, Ange. Tino pai o koutou mahi I tēnei pō. Koutou mā, nau rauranga tira I tēnei wā, I noho nei tēnei tūru. Unuhia ki tūru tapu nui, kia wātea, kia māma, tēnā kau te tinana, te wairua I te ara takata, koiara e rongo whakairia ake ki runga, kia tīna, haumie, huie, taike. And in English, well done everybody, have a great night.
Kia ora. Appreciate that. Thank you. Right, so that now closes our meeting at 7:10. 7:09 to be precise. Okay, 7:09 it is. So we will now move into the workshop in regard to the local alcohol policy, which will also be recorded. And we have Mika and Melissa here to present to us.
Madam Chair, as I say, I do have, with that workshop, I'm okay, having been in a class 3, to the same, John, aren't we? we're on the executive for the RSA, both of us. It's a workshop, it's not a just think, I don't know, ask
Yeah,
Jo
so
what she
I
thinks,
don't think that you do. We're not making any decisions or anything.
of, you know,
And, no, I don't think at this point that you would have a conflict, would they?
yeah. It's the same with gambling too, so we've got gaming insurance, so we have to be aware of that.
Well, but I don't think they need, well, unless they want to leave.
That's a good motion, that really. Yeah, no, you did what I wanted you to.
Lou? Oh, yeah, this was somewhere different, wasn't it? It didn't come up in my diligent. Yes, please. Yep. Oh, blowing on.
Are you okay to keep going or do you want a little break?
No, let's keep going. It's early for us. Normally we would be. So, and that way you guys get to go home earlier as well. So, yep, no, keep going.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. I take the report as read. So this is really just an opportunity tonight for you to ask any questions that you might have. If at any stage you feel like providing some direction, your thoughts, please feel free. But it is mainly just to make sure we all understand what's a pretty complex problem. There's just a lot to it. So yeah, please yell out if you have any questions. I'll crack into it. Yeah, tonight we're just going to cover the review process, what's involved in that and where we're up to, and then a couple of options that have been provided by the 3 regulatory agencies that look after the local alcohol policy or implementing it, and then just a little heads up on where we're going in terms of maybe collaborating with Otorohanga District Council and maybe combining with the bylaw. So yeah, the local alcohol policy has to be reviewed every 6 years. You can see currently we're right at the start of the process. So we've basically just gathered some information and next step is for the council to make a decision on one of 3 things. So either get rid of the policy or repeal it because it is optional. You don't have to have a local alcohol policy, or review it. So that's just saying, yes, we're happy with it, or review it and change it. So just the 3 options. Any questions about any of the other parts of this? No, pretty happy. So yeah, the local alcohol policy is a primary way for communities to get their input into how alcohol is managed in the district. And yeah, it's a primary way. And that's sorry, I was going to say something about the appeals process at the end, but we'll leave that for now. It's a bit complicated. Okay, so there's a lot to it. You can see there where the local alcohol policy sits in all of this. There's a lot of different groups involved. The 3 regulatory agencies that I was talking about, that's the Medical Officer of Health, the police, and the alcohol licensing inspectors. So they essentially, they are at the forefront of this, and they essentially take what's in the lap and enforce it. Now, the local alcohol policy is a I guess the best way of looking at it is it's a set of guidelines, but the final decision-making power lies with the district licensing committee. So what's in the local alcohol policy is essentially, this is what the community and the council would like to see in the district. And then the district licensing committee, very rarely, but it can decide to go against that when they are granting a license. It's essentially a set of instructions for them about what the community would like. Yeah, the local alcohol policy deals with alcohol in two parts. So there is the license and the premises. As far as the license goes, there's 4 different types of licenses, relatively self-explanatory, but we'll step through these as we go, one at a time, because my poor guinea pigs before I think proved that it was a bit difficult to do it a different way. So it's a bit long, but hopefully there's a lot of slides, but hopefully we go through them quite quick. So in Waipa, you can see there are currently, as of January, 73 on licenses, 38 off licenses, and 29 club licenses. Special licenses are sort of a one-off, so that number changes quite quickly. Any questions? Happy?
Do you need a license to sell it in a supermarket?
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be an off license.
Off license, okay, thank you.
Okay, so the premises, the other part of the 2 halves, the premises can be one of 3 things. So it's the physical space where the alcohol is being sold. So a premises can have 2 licenses. So most often an on license and an off license if they have 2 of them. So that would be, for example, a tavern that where you can go to the bar and buy a drink, but you can also maybe take some away with you. And for the purposes of people who manufacture alcohol, a vehicle is also part of the premises for them. And this is just a little definition that I pulled out because there's a lot of things that rely on this. So I just want you to take note. We can always come back to the slide if you have questions, but throughout the policy currently, directly border is basically that bit in front of the shop. Okay, so as for an example, currently you can have, so you're not allowed to be located or directly bordering a school. You can theoretically have a school or early childhood centre in the same building as a place that sells alcohol, but behind, like the 2 entrances face the opposite way. So just, yeah, the definition here is kind of important just to get your head around. Okay, so we'll step through the first license. So remember, if you do have any questions, I am going to put a couple of options up there. If one particularly appeals, let us know, just so you can sort of get a feel of where this might go. So yeah, just so we're all clear, an on license is where alcohol is allowed to be sold and supplied for consumption on the premises. And generally, places that have on licenses, cafes and restaurants, bring your own restaurants and caterers. Okay, so this is where it gets complicated. Brace yourselves. Council only has control over a couple of very specific areas as far as this goes. So the first area is the location of a licensed premises by reference to broad areas. What that means in plain English is areas that can easily be defined. Okay, so zones from a district plan or town boundaries, or for example, liquor ban areas. So places that are defined. And currently, you can see the rule is new licenses are limited to areas zoned to allow commercial activities as permitted activities. So that's according to what's said in the district plan. And what the agencies, so what the police, the inspectors and the medical officer of health have suggested is that we keep this the same. But remember, that's just their suggestion. So I've also put in there other, okay? So if there's any other options that is preferred, then council can choose that. So, pretty happy? So next one, proximity to premises of a particular kind. In English, that means basically license next to a license. So on license next to on license, off license next to on license, that sort of thing. So currently, the decision-making power sits entirely with the district licensing committee. They can, when they get an application in front of them, they can decide whether they should consider the location of another premises. And again, recommendation is no change. Next one, facilities of a particular kind. So this one is basically, a facility can include buildings, equipment, and services for a particular purpose. Sensitive facilities. So if you read the report by medical officer of health and the inspectors, they did switch to language saying sensitive site. It's essentially the same thing. So it's areas where vulnerable people might tend to go. So maybe children, or I think what they were specifically referring to is perhaps people going through rehabilitation. So currently it's only the school, the early childcare facility, or a place of worship where directly borders, remember, you can't have anything directly bordering. So unless they can explain to the district licensing committee that them being there is not going to impact any individuals using that facility, and in non-commercial areas, there's a distance associated with that as well.
Make just a quick question
Yeah.
back there. You'd said in that earlier one that it's going to be limited to commercial, but then we've got that part that says for non-commercial areas. So
The previous one was where the actual premises can be located in the district.
yeah,
And now we're talking about next to, for example, next to a school. So,
but if it's if we're saying that a non-license can only be in a commercial area, then why do we need something that says for one that's gone into a residential? Well, say
they're keeping it, I think the purpose is to keep the two separate. So if you're in the center of town, that's usually a commercial. So you want them to be closer together. You want more packed into the center of town. Whereas when you're out of that center of the town, a little bit more space maybe is appropriate, because there is more likely to be schools outside.
so I've misinterpreted that previous one. It wasn't saying that licensed premises must be within the commercial area. It was just saying if they are blah, blah, blah.
They're allowed to be there if they're a permitted activity or by resource consent. Sorry, I didn't read out the or by resource consent. So if you go through that process, it could be an exception.
Yeah, no, I've got it. I just had that muddled up in my head.
Yeah, no,
That's all
fair.
right.
Like I said, there's a lot.
Yeah, I was going, so that means you can only do that, but I don't know where I got that now.
No, it's just to lull you all to sleep just before we go. So,
so we can make some further recommendations to that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just go over what is proposed. So, the agencies have proposed to increase those sensitive, those facilities. So currently, remember, school, early childhood centre, place of worship. They also suggest that council includes rehabilitation treatment centres, marae, community facilities, public parks, health facilities, and recreational facilities. That being places like playgrounds and sports grounds. They've also suggested sorry, I should have clarified before. These options aren't mutually exclusive. You know, you can combine them or you can just pick one, or like, it's just suggestions, because the three agencies don't necessarily even agree with each other on what to do. So no new licenses within 200-metre radius of facilities unless, again, you can explain to the district licensing committee that what you're doing there is not going to have an impact. And just a minor detail, but they've also changed the wording there to no more than minor, which is the same wording that you use in the district plan. So it just makes it, I guess, easier to have that case law behind it, what that means. Any, so is this the one you wanted to maybe suggest?
Yeah, I would probably, as a little suggestion, go health and social facilities. So it would include something, say, like my place of work as a social services organisation, that it could include those types of facilities too. Because we would refer to the rehabilitation treatment centre, but we still could be, we would still have vulnerable people, and I wouldn't like to see a, you know, like something like that right next door to us or someone similar. So, and yeah, just using as a quick example, when we recently had a liquor license want to go into where Waitomo have ended up, you know, we had Raukawa charitable trust that is a social services and does offer drug and alcohol counselling across, but they weren't bordering, so they didn't count, and there was no distance needed. A little bit further down the road, you've got Rural Health South, who also do drug and alcohol. Behind it was the daycare, and where they were going to put their park, it would have meant that even though technically they were behind it, anyone parking there, the kids were looking over the fence basically into the car park, and people with all their booze and carrying on. So yeah, it would be quite good that really like that 200-metre radius, because that would capture that regardless of whether they were behind it, and like those ones all around there. So really like that. But just to add social services would be a request there. And I did wonder, because I was thinking about it, but I'm not quite sure how you'd word it. And that's, you know, like when something like a liquor license is on a main walkway for our kids. So for example, but I'm not quite sure, but well, we're looking at new ones, so we can't do anything about existing ones because they're already there. But, you know, going forward, is it okay that they are able to be situated on a main route for school children? So
we'd probably have to,
but I'm not quite
look exactly.
Yeah, might be a bit complicated.
Also, I'm not entirely sure if something like that would fall under facilities.
Yeah, just a thought.
Yeah.
Just
No.
in the back of your head, I don't.
No, I can definitely. It's like a good point. Can go ask. Sorry,
because that was just one of the things that we raised with as an objection with the Waitomo one, because all of the college kids that come down through town come along right past there. So it was a perfect opportunity for them to be advertising cruises and
Could just
things
make
like
one
that.
comment.
Yeah.
These issues will all be considered with the resource that is being a consent under that resource consent process, which you have to go through to have it, because that's where it was all
Yes,
covered.
but that's how I know
all
about
those
it.
issues are discussed by your commissioners.
But no, currently, unless there is a bylaw that covers it, you might be able to bring
just
it
for
up,
the
but it
resource
doesn't have any
consent,
standing.
you don't need, so resource consent different to the license, and the resource consent, you don't need that if you're in a commercial area where you're allowed to have sell stuff. It's a permitted activity. So if you're in a commercial area and you're doing something that's permitted, you don't need a resource consent. It's only if they're going out of that scope. So yeah, you wouldn't necessarily the district licensing committee wouldn't necessarily consider school routes. Yeah.
I think that's important in terms of the purpose of the policy is really signalling our intent to the DLC. And so if that was something that we could do and there was a real appetite for that, I guess it's really drawing a line in the sand and saying to the DLC, this is what we want. Then it doesn't leave it up for them to kind of make that decision.
I forgot. Can it relate to, for example, just on licenses? Because
Yeah, that's why I've broken them into sections.
yeah, so you could have something that just related to new on licenses, because really someone say like a new cafe or a new restaurant, that's not really going to be an issue, unlike kids walking past a on license that you know, from 3 o'clock till 4 o'clock or something, they've got their, you know, vodka cruises advertised or their cheeky or
Off-license.
yeah. Oh, sorry, an off license. Yeah,
I know.
yeah, off license is what I meant to say. Yeah.
Also, just a point of clarification there in terms of, and sorry, you're going to cover this. In terms of, say, an off license, for example, under the policy, you can't differentiate between, say, a supermarket and a bottle store.
Yeah.
Because they're an off license.
You can, but it's something that will most likely, and this isn't how you should make a decision, but it's not entirely fair, and so is most likely going to get appealed. So the big difference between this policy and a lot of the other policies is it does have that appeals process at the very end. So normally council decides, yep, we want this policy, everyone agrees to it, and then that's it. With this one, after that happens, you can get appealed.
Yeah.
And for just like the medical officers of health have actually recommended breaking it down like that, distinguishing between bottle stores and supermarket. Whether that would actually go through is a different matter. Is it fair to break them up like that? Yeah.
They tend to advertise differently though, don't they? And you've got supermarkets that sell beer and wine, whereas you've got off licenses that sell hardcore liquor and lolly water, as I call it. So I think that's possibly where the big difference is. And you don't generally see supermarkets putting signs out with, you know, by 24.
Maybe we'll just
know.
park that until we get
Yes,
to the off
absolutely.
licenses, because
Yeah.
all of these things you're mentioning is actually something that's in there.
Probably specific to them. Yep, cool, thank
But
you.
yeah, you guys seem pretty, or Angela, at least you seem quite happy with these ones. Oh, anyone else? Yeah, so continuing with on licenses, further issuing of licenses for premises in the district. So basically, should we allow any new licenses? Currently, there are no limits, provided you meet all the other conditions, and yeah, propose no change. So still, you know, allowing things like cafes to pop up all across the district. Trading hours, there's quite a lot on here, but just to compare the two, there's not a lot of change really being proposed here. For on licenses, it's basically looking at the licenses that are already there for hotels and taverns, and if they have a license, for example, till 1 o'clock, but they only ever open till 12, then bringing that hour back. So just, yeah, not not, the agency aren't proposing to change it if everyone is actually using all the hours that they're licensed to open to. It's just if they're not actually using that extra hour. But what they might be doing is for 99% of the year, they close an hour earlier than what their license allows. And then on New Year's, they'll open for that extra hour. Yeah, and so that's also for restaurants, cafes, and function centres. And then there's a little bit different around the tavern or other premises. They've increased the distance, how far away that has to be from a residential zone, and then brought the hours down a little bit if they can prove. Yeah. So, and then the outdoor areas also just bringing that down an hour. Questions?
Right, is that the last time they can, so at 1 AM, that's the last time they can pour a drink, but the people can vacate at 2? Or
Yeah, I'm not 100% on that.
so I can go
but
up and I can get half a dozen drinks at 1 AM in the morning and have them lined up.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Is that how it works?
I think so, but I'm not 100% on that. But I'm pretty sure it's, yeah, is up to that hour you can sell. Yeah.
Can I just ask why for the, that they're wanting to bring it back to 1 o'clock?
It's just the data shows there, it's in the background report. I know
okay.
there's also a lot of stuff in there, but that's generally when from about 11 PM till 2 AM is the prime time for people to have alcohol related incidents. It's also when all the emergency department, people coming to the emergency department spikes around that time. So just what the data says is that the later you go, the more likely you are to have issues.
So if someone started a nightclub, then they wouldn't be able to, you know, like I'm just thinking like what happens in Hamilton.
Yeah.
That's kind of the time they start. You know, type of thing, you know, like they start at 11, 12 and go through
Maximum, I'm pretty
3 or
sure
4.
the maximum time a license can go to currently with hours is 2 o'clock. If you don't have a local alcohol policy or you don't specify what the maximum trading hours are, the default time is 4 AM. But currently we can only go to 2 AM according to the lab.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yes, you could extend it if you really wanted to go down that way. Okay, one-way door restrictions. We're all kind of clear on what that is. So it's sort of what you were talking about before, like up to a certain point you can leave, but you can't come in, or they don't sell you alcohol anymore. So currently it's at midnight for hotel or tavern. So just with the hotel and tavern, these are terms that are defined in the Act. So there's a very specific meaning for what these things are. So yeah, same thing. So 1 hour prior to maximum closing time. So only for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. It's being as possible options proposed that. So again, you can see there's a slightly difference here between what the different agencies suggested. So one-way door restriction starting at 12 for basically primary businesses where alcohol is a primary business, and then class 1 club, restaurant, and tavern one-way door restriction starting at 12 midnight. And then also just one of the suggestions was doesn't matter what time, but don't stagger them so that you can't go from one place to the other as your night progresses. I do have a definition for class 1 club, restaurant, and tavern if you're really interested, but it's a bit in the weeds. Happy? Cool. Discretionary conditions. This is more just as a heads up. This is probably something that we're going to talk about a lot later, but it's been suggested that, yeah, there's quite a few more discretionary conditions attached just around safety of the staff. And so you can record incidents rather than leaving it up to the DLC. Off licenses, everyone's favorite one. So alcohol is allowed to be sold for consumption somewhere else. So this is all your bottle stores, your supermarkets. I have a list because we did kind of get stuck on this the other day when we're presenting to council. So these are the places they can have an off license. So retail premises with at least 85% of annual income from sale of alcohol to be consumed off premises or from remote sales. Places that make alcohol, supermarkets with a floor area larger than 1,000 square meters, hotel or tavern with an on license, and a grocery store. So where we got stuck before was the difference between a grocery store and a dairy. So dairy, as you can see there in the last point, is specifically excluded from selling alcohol. And the only difference, according to the Act, between a dairy and a grocery store, it's basically if it looks and smells like a dairy, it's a dairy. If it looks and smells like a grocery store, it's a grocery store. When you're applying for a license and you want to be a grocery store, you also have to provide your retail take and how that breaks down. So I'm just going to read this to you because I can't quite get my head around it. So the difference between a dairy and a grocery store. A grocery store is basically a store that looks and smells like a grocery store and principally sells food products. Whether a store principally sells food products is determined by analysis of its revenues. Revenues have the GST, tobacco, excise, and lotto and keno removed and are then split into 5 categories. To qualify as a grocery store and therefore be eligible for an off license, food products must be the largest category of revenue. Yay.
So it's basically to cover four squares, eh, in little places like Ohope Beach, for example, because I know they've got an off license and yeah, Pirongia would be one. Yeah. So 4 squares basically. But I have another question. How come a supermarket has to have a minimum floor size, but a grocery store doesn't? That sort of seems.
Great.
Do you
question.
know why?
No, I don't know. Short answer. This is yeah.
Sorry, it's got nothing to really to do with it, but it's just like what a weird thing to do. That
it's a good question.
You're allowed to if you're a little wee tiny 4 square, you know, like a little 4 square that smells like a 4 square. But you're not if you're a supermarket, unless you're a big supermarket.
Rural areas which don't have a big supermarket. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, well, then they should just call themselves a grocery store, shouldn't they? Not a supermarket. They'd be an idiot to call themselves a supermarket. I am digressing. So carry on.
It's just so we don't get stuck on the dairy grocery store issue again. You're stuck on 4 squares. You have to get stuck on something. Okay, so next one. Broad areas. So again, definable areas. Currently, commercial activities as permitted activities. That's, where in zones where this is permitted or by a resource consent. It's proposed that a cap is placed on off licenses within urban areas or alcohol ban areas. And then outside alcohol ban areas, the rest of the requirements in the local alcohol policy has been met. And also it's suggested that the applicant has to provide a local impact report to the district licensing committee. So I guess you can look at it as like a mini resource consent in a way, just to prove you are okay to be there.
Is that local impact report not already in there?
I believe it's not. And in the, if you have a look at the licensing inspector's submission, they've laid it out quite nicely what they would like to see in there.
Okay. No, I just thought that it had been, but not cool.
I think parts of it, but it's not this is what you have to do every time. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? No. Okay, oh yeah, so this was just in case you had questions about what an alcohol ban area looked like. So currently, these are the areas that the little red dotted areas are the alcohol ban areas. And just for future reference, if this is something that appeals to the community board to go down this route, it just means that if you use places like alcohol ban areas to define where licenses are allowed to be, that just means that the local alcohol policy becomes very closely intertwined with the alcohol control bylaw, which is a separate thing, but now you're using parts of the other one to make this one. So just it can get messy, I guess. But yeah, that's just the FYI. So yeah, and these places, but we'll skip over these. Yeah. Off licenses, proximity to premises of a particular kind. So off licenses next to other off licenses, basically. But currently it's up to the district licensing committee if they consider it relevant that this off license is going to be close to another off license. And if you do have an off license with an on license, you have to have two separate points where you sell the alcohol. So one for on license and one for the off license. So proposed changes. So this is what we were talking about before. So the medical officer of health recommends that no new off licenses for bottle stores. So they've separated out the different types of off licenses within 1 kilometre of existing bottle store, licensed supermarket or grocery store. So yeah, like I said, they did actually go and separate it out. Whereas the licensing inspectors suggested no new off licenses, so just all of them within 500 metres of existing off license. Comments, questions, concerns?
In a small place like we are, 1 kilometre is probably quite a big thing. I think that probably 500 is more relative. Is probably more realistic.
I believe the example that that the medical officer of health representative used at the workshop we had with councillors is that in Tamahere, don't know how familiar you are with Tamahere, they have the little shops there, and that's in the Waikato District Council, and they have a 1 kilometre. You might know more than me about this. 1 kilometre radius, and because of that, they couldn't put a bottle store next to the supermarket there. And so, yeah, that was her example of situations that this might come in. Also, you have to remember that places that are off licenses are quite often supermarkets. And so is a supermarket going to locate itself in your new C1 to T's, whatever, new development areas if they aren't allowed to sell alcohol? So it's just something to consider.
Because that would stop, I'll think about this for a minute. So that would stop if there was a grocery or a supermarket at like Tamahere, that potentially if they had an off license, they could sell beer and wine. But ideally the residents of Tamahere might like to have a bottle store that sold the other alcohol as well, but they wouldn't be able to be in that precinct at all, would they? Because that would stop that. But if it was 500 metres, it actually still would stop it in that precinct, wouldn't it? Because even if you went sort of from one point to the other.
Remember this is just suggestions as
Yeah,
well.
no, I was just sort of using that as a scenario of something
like
to
just,
be
I guess,
mindful of.
take the concept and adjust the distance if that's the bit that doesn't appeal. So many options. So for off licenses, proximity to facilities, so similar as what we were talking about before, schools, early childcare care facilities, places of worship, outside commercial areas, 400 meters, exceptions apply if you can prove that you're not having a significant impact. And then your DLC also has to have regard to places like public parks, car parks, and reserves when they look at this. It's proposed that, again, same as before, the same facilities are included. So I imagine it's similar response again, possibly including social services. And then they also want to suggest that in the commercial zone, so no new licenses in a 200-meter radius of these facilities. So this is off licenses that their reasoning for treating off licenses more stringently is because research shows that off license generally do more harm in terms of selling alcohol. And then another suggestion was outside alcohol ban areas. So usually in your residential areas, no new off licenses within a 500-meter radius of these sensitive facilities, unless you can show through a local impact report that it's okay. Questions? Anyone falling asleep yet? So further licensing, yeah. No, so same, no change. And this is just for the whole district. Trading hours, a little bit changing here, or proposed to change, basically just shortening it. And again, this is due to research showing that the later you sell alcohol, the more likely it is to cause harm. So they were just trying to pull that in a little bit. But also suggested that ask the community through a survey what works for them. Discretionary conditions, again, just the FYI, lots of things that could potentially be put on the licensee to, like, criteria to be met to prove that they can do it responsibly, sell alcohol responsibly.
So even on this previous slide, it was saying even bottle stores, it's saying your suggestion is supermarkets could sell later, but it's saying bottle stores could still sell from 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's two different suggestions. So I believe the top one is the police that suggested 9 to 9 all days. Then the medical officer of health suggested splitting those out, the ones that they believe cause most harm. And yeah, but leaving it, yeah, I'm sure it was that way. But thinking that most people on flexible schedules these days, you know, they might not work 9 to 5.
Or they might be on their way home from work.
Might be on their way home, yeah. So 7 a.m. doesn't make that much difference. Also, I believe a point that made them look at this is recently Auckland's local alcohol policy just got through the High Court, Supreme Court, one of those, big court. They were stuck there for 6 years, where in the appeals process, where the supermarkets were appealing the hours was one of them, and one of the things they were appealing was it was proposed 9 to 9, and they wanted 7. So I think they looked at that case and what came out of that and decided this is reasonable. Okay, club license, short one. So club license, alcohol is allowed to be sold and supplied for consumption on the premises to a member of the club, a member's guest, or an authorised visitor. So places such as sports clubs, social clubs, Cosy Club, RSA, yeah, those places. So yeah, currently for broad areas, they have to be located near a sports ground or other facilities used by the club if relevant. So no changes proposed there. Sorry, I'm going to speed up a little bit because then see you guys falling asleep. So premises of a particular kind. So club license next to a club license, off license. Totally decision-making power is in the DLC's hands. And they just have to consider if it's going to be a problem. Maybe this club license is next to this off license. So no change proposed there. And then facilities, again, same school, early childcare, place of worship, or residential area. So that's also being considered here. And the proposal is to include all those other places that we talked about before. And also no new licenses within 200-meter radius of facilities unless demonstrated to DLC that effects are no more than minus. Again, proving that you're okay to be there. All over the district, no limits for how many club licenses you can have, and no changes proposed there. Trading hours, so yeah, this one's a little bit interesting. In setting club licenses, the DLC has to have regard to what is happening at that club, but the hours can't be longer than 9 a.m. till 1 a.m. the following day. But it really depends what that club is doing. The proposed change is that nothing past midnight if they aren't already doing that. So if they have a license till 1, but they only operate till 12, cool, we'll bring all of the licenses back to that 12. It's one of the suggestions, and the other one is just Monday to Sunday, 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. So actually increasing.
So they're looking at increasing potentially
that's-
their time,
that-
and hotels and taverns have to cut these back, but
Yeah,
clubs and that could
it's-
go an extra hour.
It's just
Ooh.
the nature of the nature of the activity.
Competition.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, you have to be a I guess it's because if you're a member, you know, you can only be served if you're a member or guest. There's more control over what's happening there. It's the theory, yep. Yeah, one-way door restriction, same as before. So stops the staggering closing times basically, and the places that also fall under the categories of class 1 restaurant or tavern. Because remember, the clubs can also have these facilities as well. And before, or currently it's 2 hours before, so making it all midnight. Okay, same sort of discretionary conditions. Only difference here with the club one is that they suggest that a duty manager should be present on those busy days, so Fridays and Saturdays from 6 p.m. onwards, and when there's expected to be over 50 people at the venue. There's a bit more watchful eyes, I guess. Okay, last one, almost there. Special licenses. Like I said, these only get handed out as a one-off. There are 2 types of them, and there's the on-site and the off-site. So examples, festivals, concerts, birthdays, funerals, weddings, conferences, field days. So basically, for selling alcohol at events or occasions on a premises that is unlicensed, or a premises that would be outside the normal license conditions, and can permit on-site or off-site sales and are enforced for the date and time of the event only. There, no one. So issuing of special licenses. So currently, District Licensing Committee has the decision-making power. Yeah, so they could say that if it's more appropriate, doesn't really look like a one-off, we think you should probably get a on or off or a club license instead, or you're at a venue that already has a license, we'll just change the conditions of that a little bit. No change proposed there. And then maximum trading hours. Yeah, no license beyond 1 a.m. DLC can determine exceptions. And yeah, if you already have a license, you have to stick to what's on your license generally. But a special license can have greater hours in exceptional circumstances. So no change again there. One-way door restrictions, no change. Most of the changes they're proposing here is in the discretionary conditions, and that's just to make it, I guess, a little bit safer. So you have to have a plan for how you're going to manage everything if you have more than 400 people there. A condition about in certain instances banning glass, for example. So a really rowdy festival. Probably not, well, maybe your wedding, I don't know. Funeral, you can probably have a glass of wine. It's not going to get too out of hand, but yeah, big festival. Having types of vessels restricted. Yeah, restrictions on number and kind of alcoholic beverages. Requirement to talk to the police, the medical officer, health and inspector before your big event to see if you got all the right things in place. And then, yeah, a couple other little things about queue management and the closing times of the bars in the event and some security measures as well. But yeah, that's all in the report if you want to have a closer look at those, but a little bit further down the track, we'll come have a look at that. Yay, we survived. Okay. Any last questions on that? Feel like we kind of understand. Like I said, it is like a big thing, and the more you look at it, the more complex it gets, but kind of understand the difference between the licenses and the aim of what the agencies are trying to get at. Cool. So yeah.
Sorry, just why in collaboration with Otorohanga District Council? What's the reason for that?
So currently we're sharing services around licensing with them already. We share, oh, I wish Carl was here just to make sure I got this right. We share the district licensing committee, and we share some of the licensing inspectors. And so, and their local alcohol policy is also due for review. Last time it came up, the two councils did it together. And that's just to share resources. And because share the same environmental health team, it also just makes it easier for the people who enforce the local alcohol policy to, you know, sort of have potentially one thing to look at. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. So yeah, we're looking at that. No firm decisions have been made there. And then the other thing we're looking at is to combine this review with the bylaw review so that basically I don't have to come here and talk to you about alcohol twice. So I can just talk about it once. So same thing for the community, you know, it's all alcohol. We'll go talk about it. It does mean that if we did go down that process, the bylaw isn't technically due for review till 2025. We'd have to bring it forwards a little bit. Yeah, but it is just the potential, yeah, cost savings makes it easier for people to engage with. And I think that's it. Yeah, so after this, we're gonna go have one more workshop with councillors and see what they think, and then decision on these three things basically. So if you have any feedback on what you heard tonight, if one of those particularly appeals, let us know. But yeah, that's it from me.
Well, thanks, Mika. That was very comprehensive, and Melissa for your input as well. Has anyone got any further comments or, you know, like what you think about what we should do as a community board?
Or what's been the
No, I've only
feel?
I had half
today?
a workshop with the councillors, and yeah, I think I set them up for failure a little bit with that workshop, so we need to go back and redo that one. And then I've been to the Cambridge Community Board, and similar, like it was more just a this is what it is. Let's make sure we're all on the same page moving forwards because it's so complicated. So no real direction at this stage, but it is quite clear from the agencies that they'd like to keep the local alcohol policy. They think it's a really good way of managing alcohol, and they would also like to make some changes. That's from the agencies.
Are the community advisors involved with this at all?
Yeah, Corinne is.
Thank you.
Oh, no. Yeah, from my perspective, having been pretty close to that application on that Waitomo site, there's some really good things come through for changes. So I'm certainly very supportive of supporting the changes. And I think that idea about the LAP and the bylaw coming together makes really good sense. I really like that. I think maybe some of the agencies might have been a little bit tough on these guys possibly, but yeah, but otherwise on the whole, it's good to see that we're going to have some changes, because we really need to, because we got by out of, yeah, that one down there by the seat of our pants. It was just because that line of sight managed to just catch the Presbyterian church. So as a place of worship, it was really like,
That's actually, sorry, that is one point I should make. If it does go down the route of keeping the policy and changing it, that definition is probably something that's going to be looked at.
yeah. Because yeah, it was sort of like we sat there and kind of drew to see, and it turned out that it kind of fit in like there. It was really because of the angle of that site, the way it faced was really fortunate that it basically faced across there, sort of type to catch it. But the poor guy that was doing the application, he didn't realise, because of course the church already has been pulled down. So yeah, it was a pretty, it was what saved it. Otherwise, what other way we looked at it, it didn't count. But with the things that they're proposing there, that there would be a number of things that they wouldn't be able to catch. And I also like the fact that there's, and it could possibly go into some more things, is the opportunity, if they can prove that there's not a impact on that community. I think that gives the business an opportunity, and that would, like a Tamahiri type example where there was a supermarket, you could possibly have a liquor store that sold other beverages as well. Maybe not right beside each other, but like if they could prove that there wasn't an impact of them doing it, that, and the other organisation shop was okay with it. I think there's some potential there. So well done, thank you, and well presented, and yeah, it was easy to follow. My dumb question was just that. You're on. So thank you. Is there anything further? No, we're all happy. Oh, thank you very much, ladies. We've completely finished by 8:10. That must be just about a record, is it?